Hey guys, hope you're all doing good out there today. What I want to talk to you about today is about the most powerful and dangerous prayer you might ever pray. Okay, and I'm going to be speaking from my own experience, and I want to share a story about it, and I want to talk about it today. So, the most powerful and dangerous prayer you could ever pray is, God, would you break my heart for what breaks yours? Now, for me, I prayed this prayer. The first time I probably prayed this prayer, like earnestly and sincerely prayed this prayer, was probably about 3.5 years ago. And I can remember where I was. I can remember what was going on. I was driving. I was living in Lethbridge at the time, and I was crossing the bridge, going across the river from one side of the city to the other. And I remember I think I was worshiping to some music in my truck or something like that. And I just prayed that prayer and I said, God, would you break my heart for what breaks yours? And immediately I started choking up. I started choking up and starting to kind of cry a little bit. And I was like, my goodness, what's going on? And just my thoughts were just flooded with all the people in the world that, didn't know the gospel, or that were hurting or struggling or addicted or all those kind of things. And it was almost overwhelming. Like, it was like, wow. Okay. And I kind of had to pull up to the top of the hill, and I kind of had to pull over for a couple minutes and just compose myself because I was on my way to work. And so from that point on, over the last like 3 to 3.5 years, God has been continuously stirring my heart and bringing me to a place more and more and more of being able to see situations, see things, and see people the way that God does, and break my heart for the things that break his heart, because I gave him permission to do that. And so I've always been the type of person that, I've over the last few years, I've shared about my faith, and, I tell people I'm a Christian and things like that. But it really started to shift in the last couple of years into really reaching out to people, praying and asking the Holy Spirit to give me opportunities, and going, God, would you give me an opportunity to minister to somebody today? And then boom, I'll bump into somebody on the street or something like that, and he'll be like, there they are. And, give me an opportunity to speak into their life. And so, he's been stirring that up more and more and more over the last few years. And the story that I want to talk about, just a little short story to just kind of amplify what I'm talking about, or put a pin in it or whatever. I don't know how to explain it. Is about a year ago, it was last summer. My wife and the kids, they were gone for the week, and I was home working, and I was out the one evening. I think I had to run to the store to get something, and I was coming home, and as I normally do, I was praying, and I was just asking God, if there's someone you want me to minister today, would you bring them across my path, or would you lead me? And as I'm driving, I felt the Holy Spirit leading me to drive down this back alley by our house in kind of one of the rougher parts of town, and so I did. And there was a couple of women sitting there, and they were homeless, and I recognized one of them because we'd done some street ministry and things like that with our church, and so I'd run into her before, and the other lady I didn't recognize. So anyways, I pulled over and I just asked them how things were going and if they needed anything. And I said, are you guys hungry? Do you guys want a meal? And so then I went and got them a meal, and I came back and sat down with them and asked them their names and started talking to them and hearing their story. And they just started sharing their story. And the one lady, just was sharing just this tragic story of, being kicked out when she was like 15. And she's basically been on the streets ever since. And her dad rejected her, and her family rejected her. And, she had multiple children with different men, and all of them had rejected her, and kind of just this horrible things that had been said to her and done to her and whatnot. And she just had a really rough life. And I mean, obviously I understand like some of the decisions were her own, but that's not really the point here. And then same thing with the other young woman that was there and whatnot. And so I just ministered to them for a few minutes, and then I left, and I felt like I needed to go back. And so I went home and I got some more supplies, some stuff that they had said that they needed, and I got some food, and I came and some Bibles, and I brought it back and I gave it to them. And I just said, can I pray with you guys one more time? And I just prayed with them, and I just tried to show God's love to them as tangibly as possible, with bringing them something and meeting a need, and then just showing them that they were valuable. And then I left. And And this was different than other times when I had done this, because me and my wife and our kids, even, we'd gone and done this with a team of people downtown and stuff. So this wasn't new. But what was new was what started happening in me as I was leaving. So as I'm leaving and I'm going home, something started to stir in my stomach, even, I would say, you know, in my gut, in my innermost being. Something was starting to churn up. Something was starting to turn. I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I better get home. And so I got home, and I got in the door, and I walked in. I set my stuff down. I walked into the kitchen, and I made it to the kitchen counter, and then I just had to put my hands on the counter, and I just started crying. And then the crying turned into bawling. And then that turned into weeping. And then that turned into wailing. And next thing I know, I'm laying on the kitchen floor. Okay? I'm laying on the kitchen floor, rolling on the kitchen floor, crying out to God. And my heart is just absolutely broken. And I'm just crying. And the words that just kept coming to me were like, these are your daughters. These are your daughters, and you care about them so much. And it was as if he was allowing me to feel his heart towards them in a way that I hadn't before. And it just absolutely broke my heart. It just completely broke my heart. And I was probably there for half an hour, 45 minutes. I couldn't get off the floor. Like, I just couldn't. Like, I was on the floor. I was crying. I was bawling. I was wailing. I was like, my eyes were hurting after when it finally sort of subsided and that lifted off of me. And then it carried over the next morning. I was listening to a worship song, and again, it started up again. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, I'm heading out the door or whatever. Like, I need to compose myself. But that's why I say, when you pray a prayer like that, it's one of the most powerful and dangerous prayers you could pray, because you never know when God's going to start tugging on your heart, when he's going to start breaking your heart for the things that break yours. And the other part of this, too, that I want to mention is this. When he starts to break your heart for the things that break his, you start to see people differently. You start to see situations differently, and you start to see sin differently. Okay? I don't view sin the same way that I viewed sin 3.5 years ago. There is something totally different to me now about the way that I view sin. Because I don't just see it as, oh, okay, that's something bad and I shouldn't do it. I see it as something that absolutely grieves the heart of God when his children sin. When I sin, when I do things that I know are wrong, when I do things that I know are against his will, I know that it grieves his heart now. I understand that in a way that I didn't before. And so I just want to encourage you, if you've never prayed that prayer before, think about praying that prayer. But be careful, because I believe that if you pray that prayer, okay, God's going to answer that. If you're praying that honestly and sincerely, and you truly are going, God, would you break my heart for the things that break your heart? He will. He's going to break your heart for the things that break your heart. He's going to change your perspective. He's going to change how you see things, how you see people, how you treat people. You're not going to be able to walk by certain people anymore. You're not going to be able to just walk out of certain situations anymore. You're not going to be able to see, you're not going to be able to ignore sin anymore, because you're going to understand the weight of it, because he's going to allow you to feel the weight of it. Okay? So I just want to encourage you. Think about praying that prayer. Better yet, pray that prayer and watch what he's going to do in your life. Because I can honestly tell you, with the experiences that I have had in the last 3 years, 3.5 years since I prayed that prayer, I would never want to go back. I would never want to go back to having a heart that is hardened towards people, that's hardened towards sin, that's hardened towards God, that is not pliable enough that God can go, yeah, today I'm going to break your heart for this person. Today I'm going to break your heart for this situation. Today I'm going to break your heart in regards to your sin. Or today I'm going to break your heart in regards to that other person's sin, so that you stop judging that person, but you understand what's going on with them, and how much this grieves me, and how much this is hurting them and hurting me and whatnot, so you can start praying for that person instead of just judging that person. So I hope this is encouraging to you guys. I hope this is. And I hope it's challenging to you. I don't just want to make these videos just be like, oh, this is just, me talking and, I'm giving you some good advice. I hope these are challenging. I hope some of these topics, some of these things that I'm talking about are challenging to you. I hope that they're encouraging to you, but I also hope that they're challenging you, because we can't just sit still anymore. We can't just sit in a place and just expect things to just stay the same all the time. We have to constantly be growing. We have to constantly be moving towards Christ. We want to become more and more like him. We want to move closer and closer to him each and every day. So be blessed. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. Keep watching. Share it. Like, subscribe, whatever, and comment. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. I'd love to hear your experiences. I'd love to hear your experiences after you pray this prayer, because I believe that if you pray this prayer, things are going to change in your life. Okay? Love you guys. Talk to you again soon.